I have been involved in civil rights work probably since 1979, working in mainly these two areas. I've done some work in retail discrimination, but the bulk of my commitment is around police misconduct, and largely because the African American community, particularly African American males, are disproportionately affected by police misconduct. Now that flows out of the civil rights movement as Dr. King was involved in. I mean, after all, my memories of that period were, frankly, the law enforcement people using police dogs and arresting people and having the dogs attack them when folks were trying to peaceably assemble. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration that goes with the police brutality because there's this sense that there's nothing you can do about it. And so what I try to do is give people access, to let them know that there is something you can do about it. It may not work perfectly, but you do need access. You need to know that there's some place you can go. The Oscar Grant case is not resolved in the sense that, although Meserly has been sentenced to 2 years state prison, there are two things that are still left to do. One, there's a federal investigation ongoing about whether his federal civil rights were violated. And number two, a civil case is presently pending in federal court, and we are sort of gradually working toward a trial date in that case. Now, it is true that Oscar Grant has, in fact, galvanized the community, if you will. But I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of other police shootings that occur all the time. In OPD, we've been in the midst of reform efforts. We've just finished another case involving search warrants, and I think we have put together some modification. I think that will improve the situation considerably in the future. Years ago, I was involved in a dog bite case, where it turns out there were a number of dog bites. Now, we've had very few dog bite cases since then. Mm-hmm. New reforms were instituted a number of years ago. But the Riders case that we've been involved in, a lot of reforms have taken place. Although we're still in it, a lot of progress has been made. Other departments also see what happens in Oakland. They see the kind of reforms we put together in Oakland, and they implement them in their department. I don't understand why you mistreat people. To some extent, it's about history. It's about culture. I was in a department. I wrote this book a number of years ago called Blue versus Black. Let's End the Conflicts Between Cops and Minorities. And one of the things when I was working through that book, I really come to appreciate that the culture of a department really dictates the future of that department. If that department has a culture of cowboyism, assaults and beatings and stuff, that new officers come in, get caught up in that, because in order to move forward, you sort of got to participate as well. You have to be able to break that cycle. And if you can't break that cycle, you can't expect the outside people to get that done. It has to be done internally, but it also has to be done internally, but it has to have the outside pressure, like what we're trying to do in Oakland. We haven't by any means stopped acts of police brutality, but at the same time, we probably don't have the same number of vicious beatings that we had years ago. Mm-hmm. Although I'm not going to wood when I say that. I chose this law to do, and because I could see that there was a real need for it. And that came about as a consequence, it seems, in my own sense, of what I saw Dr. King do and some of the other great people of that era. Not that I'm on their level, it's just that I was impacted by that. And I think others should be. So we should remember that the King's birthday is a celebration of and a renewal of our commitment to continue the work that he foresaw, and that was to eliminate injustice. As he said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, and that should be our commitment, and it's certainly my commitment.